don't sleep through the night. Haven't been for a while. These twisted dreams. And I turn on the light to catch the devil run wild. But it's only me.
This is my whip basket. This is on my desk always, and it holds all of the projects I'm currently working on. And last night actually, at 2 in the morning, I bound off a major whip that has been with me for months and months and months. It is drying over there, and that is the 𝗬𝗥𝗡𝗥, and that is why I have a little bit of my leftover last skein of yarn here. But today I want to talk to you about a different project that is also in here. I thought we can do a little what's in my bag, I guess. So there's my little notions pouch that is overflowing with a leftover yarn that I can use to put stitches on hold. And then there's a whip that I cast on a few days ago that is not really planned to be like a fast one. It's just a stockinette whip that I want to have in there in case I ever want something mindless. So this is my cloud blouse by 𝗙𝗏𝗡𝗏, and I'm using some knitting for Olive soft silk mohair for that. And well, I didn't get that far yet. I just did some short rows and that's basically it. So that's living in there, and that can be in here for a little bit longer. Help, there's needles, many of them. This is the needles I used last night to bind off, so I have to put those away. Oh, there's a bunch of labels in here too. There's a swatch, a small one that I am trying to design something with. This is not gonna be it, but well, it's in here, and it's attached to some knitting for Olive pure silk. I should clean this out. I don't know why I started filming before doing that. I have a crochet hook in here always to pick up stitches. It is unfortunately too long to fit in my notions bag, so that's why it's just living in this basket, and I have to rummage through it every time I need to find it. And then I have this little bag here that that's my project bag for a pair of socks. This is a yarn. It is called sockenwolle by landlust sockenwolle, I guess, by lana grossa. And I got it for Christmas. It's just a single skein, and my grandma picked it up for me. And my idea for this was to make a pair of Sunday socks by 𝗙𝗏𝗏𝗏, because I made some Sunday socks gift knits for Christmas, so I was already in the pattern. I'm not the most avid sock knitter, so I just thought that would be the easiest route to go, get rid of the yarn, have a pair of socks that I made for myself that actually fit me. I made one pair of socks for myself before and they do not fit me. I went through like 7 steps of starting to knit the socks, knitting like large parts of them as you can see, and then unraveling again. And I'm very frustrated with this, and I was very good about cleaning out this whip basket over the last few weeks, I would say. So I decided I'm gonna find a different pattern for this because I'm just done with the Sunday sock pattern. So I went on Ravelry and I found a new pattern for a ribbed toe up sock, and this is what I ended up with. This is called gullblanka. And it is a free pattern, so that's great. You can go download it if you want to. It's very nice that it is free because the sock looks very pretty. And I'm going to try to make this and just going to take you along in the process. I want to get a pair of socks that I made that fit me. I have some knitted socks, but it was all made by other people. I want one pair of socks, and I keep failing at it, which is sad because I'm not bad at knitting. I know how to knit. I just can't do socks apparently. So yeah, we're gonna tackle that one, and then hopefully in this whip basket that has been haunting me for the last few weeks because I was unhappy with everything I was knitting. Hopefully that basket is gonna feel clean and empty.
If this is all God gives me, if this is all I hope to know, I'll drag it out to the sea, throw it back, let it go, 'cause I'm not willing to live any life that don't compare to what we dreamed of.
I got all of the increases done yesterday, so now while I do the boring part, we can chat a little bit. I had to learn Judy's magic cast on for this. I've never done it before. I watched a tutorial by Norman from Nimble Needles. She always has such great tutorials. I admit I don't really gravitate towards them because they're so long. He goes into like great detail about every single technique, which is amazing if you're designing or you're making modifications and you need to know like a lot of options and background information about everything. But usually I find that when I just want a single piece of information, I am too lazy to watch through all of that. But for this one, it was actually really amazing. the video was a lot longer than the part that I watched. He goes into some more details about other ways of doing it, but I just did the first one that was there, and it worked out very well. It's a bit fiddly to me still. I kind of have to practice it, and I really liked it. It makes a very cool finished edge. I am not sure of any other use cases for it though, because I feel like usually when you're casting on, you want to be able to like have a hole there. Like if you're casting on for a cuff or something, you want to be able to put your foot through. So I'm not quite sure when else I would use this, except for toe-up socks. I think he also uses toe-up socks as an example of when this is helpful in the video. So we'll see how often this will be in my repertoire of techniques I can use. I'm gonna tell you the story of these socks, I guess, because it's a long one and we need some time while we're chatting. So about a year ago, maybe longer actually, I don't remember, I went on vacation and I brought back 2 skeins of sock yarn because I had this grand idea that I would pick up some sock yarn everywhere I go and I would make a pair of socks that reminds me of that time I was traveling. And then I came home and I finished my first ever pair of socks that I had cast on right when I started knitting. And I was doing magic loop on that, which was a new to me technique at the time. I was doing it on a needle that was not suitable for magic loop. My yarn kept getting stuck in there. It was also a yarn that wasn't stretchy at all, so I was not having fun with it. I kind of abandoned the project, and then after I'd come home from the trip, I picked up my first pair of socks once more, and I actually finished it. And the issue was that I figured out I don't like knitting socks. It really wasn't very fun to me, and the socks also didn't turn out great, so that's a whole nother story. But anyways, I had these 2 skeins of sock yarn at home that I'd picked up that I didn't know what to do with now, that I had figured out I don't want to make socks. And then I think I just kept them for a long time until I decided, you know what, I should knit like a very see-through sweater at a very big gauge that is completely not suitable for the yarn, and it will be like a light summer moment. And I started on that, and my plan was to do it in a weekend. I was very motivated, and I knitted up a good amount of it before I realized I'm running out of yarn. So instead of doing the smart thing and thinking maybe this is not it, maybe I don't like this, I went online and I bought 2 more of the same skeins of sock yarn. And they arrived and I tried to make the sweater work, but I couldn't really, like the gauge or the needle I was using was still too small for what I was wanting out of the look of it. So I had an 8mm needle, that's the biggest one I still have to this day, never got a bigger one. And I was looking more for like big holes in my garment essentially. So it wasn't working out, and I ended up unraveling that sweater, and then I had 4 skeins of that sock yarn laying around. And then sometime last November I decided I should make like sock gift knits at a large gauge. So I will try to make a worsted weight sock pattern. I can just hold my sock yarn that I have double for that. And that should, you know, get the yarn out of my stash. I don't have to look at it anymore, keep it anywhere, and I will have a nice little gift. And I decided to make the Sunday socks by Petite Knit because, well, if you don't know where to go, you go to Petite Knit. It's a very basic sock pattern. It's a ribbed sock, and I thought it would be fine because even if I don't know somebody's exact size or can get them to try it on, I think you can still get a result that is relatively fitting with that. And it had like the right gauge and everything. So I started on that, and then I realized was one thing I don't like about the Sunday sock pattern, and that is that the cuff is very long, but it doesn't have any shaping. So you're just knitting a 2x2 ribbed tube for the cuff, and I just felt like for the people I was gifting this to, it wouldn't really work because it would just be too tight at the cuff. So I tried to modify the sock, having knitted like 1 pair of socks before, and you know, not really being that great at socks. And I changed a bunch of stitch counts and row counts in there, and well, it didn't really work out the way I was imagining. I got through like half of the foot of the first sock before I unraveled because the heel was just way too wide, which is a weird issue to have. Also, while making that sock, I realized that I don't have nearly enough yarn to make the cuff as long as I was making it. So I just put that aside again. I decided I'm not doing that gift knit because I don't like making socks and I don't want to. So the yarn laid around for a little bit longer until it was like a week before Christmas, and it somehow occurred to me that I could still make that gift knit just with a very short cuff because I don't have enough yarn to make a long cuff anyway, and if the cuff is short I don't run into that problem where it's too tight. So I ended up knitting 2 pairs of socks two pattern with a very short cuff, so not quite two pattern, but other than that, two pattern. And I gifted them away, and I used up most of my yarn. I had some left over that I just got rid of in the end. And that was that. And I thought, okay, successful sock, very good, redeemed myself. And then for Christmas, my grandma brought me this stocking that I'm working with now. She used to knit and crochet a bunch as well, and she's always very happy to see me do it. So it was very cute that she picked up some yarn for me. And I thought, you know what, I will make a pair of Sunday socks for myself, because I've never successfully made a pair of socks for myself. As I said, my first try didn't quite work out. I have some like knitted socks, but all knitted socks that other people knitted, and I thought it would be cute to have one for myself. I thought, I'm in the pattern now, I've done it twice, I know what to do. Or, I mean, I've done it 4 times technically, because you did 2 socks for each pair. So I started on it again, and I thought I have more yarn per sock now than I had for the socks I made for Christmas, so the cuff needs to be longer. And then I have that problem again where the cuff is too tight, because even on my leg, I don't know, I don't think it would be very comfortable to knit it that long without any shaping. Anyway, I decided I'm smart enough now at socks to make changes to this, and I did a lot of math and calculated some modifications to essentially cast on more stitches than in the pattern, and then decrease them over the course of the cuff, so that I would end up with the pattern amount of stitches at the heel. And then just continue to pattern from there. So I planned that in a way where I would only decrease 2 stitches per decrease round, because I felt like decreasing 4 at once would be too drastic of a decrease. And then obviously that didn't really work out with the 2x2 rib, and I thought I could fix it somehow, but I really couldn't. It looked very bad. So I unraveled that, and then I replanned to have the 4 decreases per decrease round with just fewer decrease rounds. And I set it on the cuff again, and I knitted almost all of the cuff before I realized I must have like mismeasured something, because I was running out of yarn. I knew I wouldn't be able to finish both pairs of socks like that. So I unraveled again, and I was very like done with all of my decrease tries, because it still didn't look great even with the 4 decreases. I understand why it's not in the pattern. Anyways, I then decided, you know what, it's a stretchy cuff, it'll be fine, I can roll it down, I will just knit it to pattern, like properly to pattern, like I did for Christmas. If in doubt with all of the modifications, just follow the pattern. So I did that, and I knitted a cuff, I knitted a heel, I knitted like half a foot, and then I realized I will have a lot of yarn left over. And I decided, you know, like a bit of foot and a heel of a sock is really not that much work. I should unravel back to the cuff, make the cuff a little bit longer, so I'm actually using up all of the yarn that I have, because I don't like keeping around leftovers, and I also don't like throwing yarn away. So I unraveled. I made my cuff longer, I set it on the foot again, and then I got like close to the toe decreases before I noticed I'm not going to have enough yarn now. I made the cuff too long. Yeah, so that happened, and then I put the sock away, and I didn't touch it for a while until I had somewhere to go, and I needed a portable project, and I didn't have anything else at the time. So I took the yarn, and I just decided to cast on the second sock, make the cuff a reasonable length, throw some yarn away if I have to. Don't overthink it that much. And I did start over on the cuff. I knitted on it a little bit, and well, yeah, I came home from where I took the sock to. I just put it here, and I didn't touch it again for another 3 weeks. The thing is, I'm not a sock knitter. I'm not excited to make socks, and then also socks that have so much going wrong with them. I was just never going to pick that project up again, and in the recent few weeks, I've been very good about cleaning out this whip basket I showed. I finished quite a lot of projects that were long-term projects for me, including this one that I'm wearing right now. That was like a whole journey. This has been in planning since I started knitting, essentially. Anyway, my whip basket was like looking really good, except this one pair of socks that was still flying around in there. And so I decided I'm gonna make a pair of socks of this, but I don't want to make the Sunday socks anymore. This whole trying to get the cuff length exactly right so that I will be using up all of the yarn that I have is not fun to me. So I went on Ravelry, and I tried to find a pattern with the following attributes. I wanted something with ribbing, because I'm not great enough at knitting socks to trust myself to make a stockinette sock that will fit me perfectly. So ribbing it is. I wanted something that was toe up, so I don't have to guess about the cuff length, and something that, you know, I like the looks of. And then I did some browsing, and I found a few socks that worked out well, and then this one was the one I liked the best, and then I saw it was free, and well, then I was sold on it. So now I'm making this one. So far, it's fine. I'm still not a big sock knitter. I think I'm never gonna be a big sock knitter. I don't get the point. Like, I like having like a cozy pair of knitted socks, I guess. I don't know, maybe that's shallow of me, but I want people to see my knitting and ask, oh my god, that's such a cool sweater. And then I can be like, I made it. And with socks, like nobody's looking at my socks and going like, oh my god, your socks are so cool. I mean, I could knit a sock like that, but it just seems like a lot of work for still just having a sock in the end. I don't want a sock that bad, I guess. So yeah, I'm not a sock person, which is sad because socks are great gift knit, and also they are just great for using up like this little bit of yarn that you have laying around. Yeah, I don't know. Also, socks are boring to me. I don't know. Like, I don't mind doing stockinette projects or anything like that. I do prefer like projects where there's something going on, but I don't usually mind if there's a bigger portion that's just mindless. But socks is so much. It's too small. It's so much turning around, and then you're wearing it in a place that's just not visible. Like if I knitted like some fingerless gloves recently, that's kind of the same concept in terms of the knitting process and experience. But it's fine because at least then I can like wear them and I get to look at them and all that. The socks are just, they're down there somewhere. I don't know what's going on there. I'm not looking there. So yeah, this is such a sad monologue. I don't know where I was going with that. I'm just telling you I don't like knitting socks while I'm knitting socks. I messed up somehow. Am I even following this rib pattern correctly? It is surprisingly hard to talk and knit 2x1 ribbing at the same time. So I think I'm gonna leave you to it now. I'm gonna continue with the foot of this, which is a very boring part. But I have to get this yarn out of my stash. And I want one pair of socks that I made. How hard can it be? I'm gonna finish this. So I'll see you at the heel.
You were with me one night, hiding tears in your eyes. Like I couldn't tell, and you stood on the shore and said there's got to be more than some gilded hell. And it drifts by like the last sight of a sky that fell.
I finished the foot of my first sock yesterday, and I wasn't really planning to get through this project so quickly. It's not a lot of knitting, so technically I'm not that fast, but I was editing this project vlog. Actually, it's like an hour long, and I did a final watch through before I export it, so I got bored listening to myself talk for an hour, so I knitted this while I was working on my editing, and I don't know, I wasn't really like paying attention, and then suddenly I realized, oh, I have a lot of fabric already, and then I was very close to how long I was supposed to make this part, and I tried it on. It seems to fit me pretty well. I think I am like very slightly away from the gauge. I am closer to the Petite Knit Sunday sock gauge that I was knitting before, so I think this is supposed to be 19 stitches and the Sunday socks is 20 stitches, and I am hitting the 20 stitches. So I was a bit worried about the sizing, but like this is stretchy enough where it's not a problem, so that's great. And I think also for the row gauge I'm like one row off, so it's all fine though. I can live with that. And now it is time to work on the heel, and the heel so far from the limited sock knitting experience that I have has been my favorite part of knitting socks. It's also the most interesting part. But I don't know, I think it's also because you don't have to do the magic loop. I'm like only now realizing that as I'm talking about it, but you only have the stitches on one of the needles, and then you just work back and forth on that one instead of having to do the whole like pulling the cable through and then trying to get the stitches back on the needle, but the cable is thinner than the needle, and you also pull your first stitch tight enough that there wouldn't be a hole, so now it's like really difficult to get it back on the needle. Yeah, I should just buy like double pointed needles. I actually never looked up how much that would be to just buy a set of double pointed needles and be done with this issue. And then also I don't know if I would enjoy working with double pointed needles more. That also seems really annoying because I mean you don't have to do the cable pulling, but like it seems like your needles would just fall out all the time. At least with a yarn like this is very slippery somehow, which I guess is comfortable for socks and also nice to knit with, but probably not practical if you want your needles to stay in place. Anyways, this is what it looks like now. It's like incredibly uninteresting, to be honest. There's just stockinette on the back side, ribbing on the front side, and you just do that in the round like a billion times. And well, now I'm going to do increases on this side to shape the heel, and it's going to be a short row heel. I believe the petite knit socks were also a short row heel, and I knitted one more pair of socks before, and that was something else, I think. Was it called heel flap and gusset? And if it was, is that any different than what I'm doing now? I don't remember what I did. Either way, I've done this sock construction before, just from the other side. So, well, let's get that done. I'm going to so lose motivation for the second sock on this.
If this is all God gives me, if this is all I hope to know, I'll drag it out to the sea, throw it back, let it go, 'cause I'm not willing to live any life that don't compare to what we dreamed of.
I got done with the heel here, and I put all of my stitches on hold because I've decided I'm going to now cast on the second sock and knit until the same point, and then I'm going to worry about the cuff. I have divided my yarn into two before I started, so this left over here should all be for this cuff. I just want to make very sure that this time I'm not running into any problems with the cuff length, so I've decided I'm doing it this way and thinking about the cuff after I'm done with both of the main parts of the sock. I think I'll have enough yarn left over that I will run into the same problem I already had with the Sunday socks, that despite the cuff being ripped, it'll get so long that it's kind of uncomfortable to wear, but I'm gonna worry about that when I get to it. For the heel, it is relatively simple. It's a pretty standard sock heel. I've really liked working it this way. I think I prefer that over working the sock top down and then having to pick up the, I guess, gusset stitches, is that what they're called? But like when you start working the heel, then you have to like reconnect the two pieces under the heel, and you have to like pick up stitches from the side for that. And I mean, that's just kind of impractical. I thought this was like easier to work from a workflow perspective. I had to learn the wrap and turn technique for this, which I've never done before because I've always knitted German short rows, and I think I prefer those. I think they're a little bit quicker for me, mainly probably because I've done them more. But essentially, instead of creating a double stitch, which you do for the German short row, you wrap the yarn around your stitch for this one, and then you have to pick up the wrap later when you're knitting the stitches again. So that took me a little while longer. I was fine, and I like visually cannot tell any difference. So it's really like whatever. But I think for like when I can decide what I want to do, if it's not in the pattern, I will prefer the German short rows. And then I ran into a little bit of a problem because I like misunderstood the pattern, which was my fault. Essentially, up until the heel here, you've only been working in the round, and then you do this short row section where it always says wrap and turn at the end of the row. And then you move on to the next section where you don't have to do the wrap and turn anymore, but it still says turn at the end of each row, which is an instruction that is sometimes included in patterns when they're worked flat. So at the end of each row, it'll just tell you to turn your work. I don't personally write that instruction in, and I've recently been working with a lot of patterns that don't include that instruction just because I feel like it's common sense to like turn your work at the end of the row if you're working flat. But yeah, I read that and I assumed it was like a German short row turn because that's how I use turn, and that's how the patterns that I've recently been working with have used the like instruction turn. So I was doing like a German short row turn at that point, and then I knitted a few rows before I realized that was probably not what I was supposed to do. Yeah, so I had to rip back and start over on that one, but it was fine. And then I ran into one more issue at the end of the heel flap that I'm still not sure what went wrong there. I think there might be a mistake in the pattern, but essentially it gives you instructions on how to decrease one stitch in the heel here after you're done. Because that way you have the same amount of stitches as you had for the foot, -1, and because of that stitch count, you are then able to keep up this knit 2 purl 1 ripped pattern for the cuff. So that made sense to me. And then there's a sentence in the pattern that essentially says you are now done with the heel. But then after that sentence, before you start with the leg, there's another decrease round where you decrease another stitch. And I'm pretty certain that's not supposed to be there. I mean, I did hit the stitch count that is given after that instruction, but I didn't decrease another stitch, and I don't get why you would need to. So either like I did something wrong before and I had one more stitches than I was supposed to, or it's something here doesn't add up. But I think probably the second one, because it says your heel is complete and then there's another instruction for the heel, so that's kind of confusing to me. But anyways, I'm just going to start on the second sock now. And I think I can replicate what I did here for that one, so it shouldn't be an issue. And I've also decided I'm gonna time myself while I work on that sock, just because I would like to know how long approximately it takes me to make one. Would just be a cool piece of information to have. And well, I'm just gonna do the exact same thing again.
All God gives me, He can keep it for Himself. I got a love that won't be settling for anything else. If this is all God gives me, if this is all I hope to know, I'll drag it out to the sea, throw it back, let it go. 'Cause I'm not willing to live any life that don't compare.
I of course didn't manage to time myself. I don't know how people do that. I would always love to know how long a project takes me, but I keep forgetting to either turn my timer off when I'm done knitting, or I keep forgetting to turn it on in the first place when I start knitting. So I have no exact numbers for you. You're just gonna have to take my word for it that it was a very quick project. I did the toe and the foot like some afternoon on one day, and then I did the heel some other afternoon, and then the cuff, I did all of it last night, so my first cuff is done already. I just knitted until my yarn was done, and then I did a bind off. There was in the end no point to me knitting both socks until the heel, because I don't know, I was thinking I could like see about the cuff length, and I could like work some of this cuff and then some of the other cuff, and then I could like make them matching, but I was too lazy to do all of that. So I just knitted this cuff until I ran out of yarn, and I'm going to do the same for the other cuff, and I'm going to just hope that they're about the same length. The cuff turned out a lot shorter than I was expecting. It somehow seemed to me like I had a lot of yarn left to do the cuff, but now it's only a few centimeters longer than what is in the pattern. So I think it says 15 centimeters in the pattern and mine is 18 now, which really isn't that much of a difference, and also the reason why I didn't do any increases or any shaping to it. I think the cuff is pretty comfortable as is. I wouldn't want it to be like much longer than this, but well, for this case it was good enough to not do any modifications. The only thing I struggled with a little bit here was the bind off. In the pattern it's just a normal bind off done in ribbing, but I was looking for a bit of a stretchier alternative. I feel like oftentimes in patterns they will opt for a simpler bind off that is not, at least not for me, very suitable for the part of your knitting that you're binding off. I really always prefer my bind off to be as stretchy as possible. I mean, for the socks here, that's a pretty obvious spot where you would want a very stretchy bind off, but also for collars of sweaters, or I don't know, I've done some gloves recently where I changed the bind off. Just, I don't know, I want to be able to put my things on comfortably. So I was looking for an alternative that would be stretchier, and it's a bit complicated because this is 2x1 rib, and I don't really think you can do anything that is in pattern and still is stretchy. Like maybe there's a way to do Italian bind off on that, but I don't know. Didn't look too deep into that. I'm usually fine if my bind off stands out a little bit, like if it's not really super matchy with the rest of the pattern. So I found a bind off called Icelandic bind off. I heard that that should be pretty stretchy. You essentially knit a stitch and then you put it back on your needle, and then you knit the next stitch through that one. So it's pretty simple to do, it's pretty fast, but mine ended up not being stretchy at all. I don't know if I did it wrong or if it's just like semi-stretchy but not really stretchy enough for this case. I'm not sure what happened there. I might have to look up another tutorial for it, because maybe I like misunderstood something in the one that I watched. Anyway, I decided to just do a stone bind off, which is a bind off I usually do for stockinette when I want something stretchy. So it doesn't really match with the ribbing, but I thought it would be okay. And I mean, you can see that the bind off looks like different than the cuff, but I don't really care about that. What I do care about is that it is still the tightest part of the cuff, so it is stretchy, but not super stretchy, so I still feel like when I wear this, the cuff is a little bit uncomfortable up there, and I don't really know how to fix that. I'm gonna do some more research on what bind off would be good for this for the sock, and then once I find one that works, I will change the other sock as well, I guess. But at least now I learned a new bind-off method, so that's always good. I feel like I learned a lot of new techniques for this pair of socks, even though, you know, it's just a basic, simple pair of socks. This was just supposed to be a very simple little project to get rid of some yarn. But I did the 𝗙𝗔𝗥𝗡 cast on, never done that before. I did the wrap and turn thing, never done that before. Now I know the Icelandic bind-off. I mean, it's always good to know, and none of these things were overly complicated to learn, but cool to have some new techniques. And well, I'm gonna spend today, or some of today, probably not gonna take me too long, getting this cuff done, and then I will hopefully have a pair of socks that I made that actually fit me.
So why do we dream down there? So why do we dream down?
Look, I made a pair of socks, and they fit me. Isn't that fun? I knitted the cuff of my second sock yesterday. There was really nothing interesting happening. It was just a 2x1 rib in the round. And then I ran out of yarn, and I noticed that the cuff of this second sock that I was working on was actually a little bit shorter than the cuff of the first sock. So my original idea of knitting them kind of at the same time and making sure they get to the same length was very justified. I mean, I obviously didn't do it that way, but for the future, maybe I should have, even though I divided my yarn exactly in half. I still didn't get the same cuff length out of it. I don't know why I would have used more yarn for one sock than for the other. I don't think my tension changed very significantly. I didn't take any super long breaks in the middle of making them, but it was just whatever. Since I wasn't really happy with the bind-off on my first sock anyway, it wasn't a problem, so I was gonna unravel it anyway, but I just ended up taking out the bind-off and then unraveling a few more centimeters. So in the end I had a tiny bit of yarn left over, but that is completely fine by me after the whole trying to figure out the correct cuff length when knitting them top down. I ended up doing Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind-off, I think it's called. I now learned her cast on and her bind-off, so that's all good to know. I would say it's okay for this purpose. It obviously doesn't follow this 2x1 ribbed pattern. I don't know if there's any bind-off option that would necessarily be stretchy enough and do this pattern here. Where is the hole? Oh, I lost a stitch. I just noticed I lost a stitch. I need to fix that. I need to get my leftover yarn back. Anyway, this is really just like knitted stitches on top here, and I feel like it flares out a little bit if I hold the sock like that. It doesn't look the prettiest like this, but I think it's fine when I put it on my leg, because then obviously this is stretched out and you can't really see it. And as you might be able to notice, the bind-off really stretches with the rest of the sock, so that's exactly what I was looking for, and I think I will be using this bind-off method in the future. It was pretty fun and quick to do. For the pattern, it was a pretty simple sock pattern. It is relatively easy to follow. It has clear instructions, it has a nice picture. I don't have any complaints about it, and I mean, it is free, so if you're looking for a worsted weight sock, I would absolutely point you in the direction of this pattern. The yarn, I usually give a review of the yarn, but I usually also pick out my yarn myself, so I don't know how qualified I am to judge this yarn, because I didn't like go through the process of comparing other yarns and picking out the one that would be best suited and all that. I enjoyed working with it. It was a basic sock yarn. It is really soft, so it doesn't grab onto itself. If that's something you're looking for, I would not recommend this, but I think for socks it's probably better to have something that's like a little more slippery, so it feels nice against your skin. And well, I finished my first pair of socks that fits me, so that's kind of cool. Will I become a sock knitter? No. Did I enjoy making this? Not really, but you know, that's fine. At least I made a pair of socks. If you have any sock patterns you think I should try, like if you're also somebody maybe who used to not like making socks and now you're in love with it, or if you're a very avid sock knitter and you're thinking you need to convince me to make the perfect pair of socks, you may leave them down below. I might take a look at them. You can also let me know if you knit socks on double pointed needles, and if or why you like that better than knitting them in magic loop or with a small circular or anything like that. Because I am considering getting some double pointed needles. Maybe I will enjoy that more, but also I don't know if I will. It seems fiddly as well, so no idea. I will now go enjoy my socks. It is a bit too warm for knitted socks at this point of the year, but I guess I will be waiting for a cold day to put them on, and if not, I'll have them for next fall, I guess. I hope I'll see you before then. maybe for a sock project, but honestly probably not.
I don't sleep through the night, haven't been for a while. These twisted dreams